What is America's future? What are we facing? And where do we go from here? What is your role in that decision? You probably have either heard or have said to somebody yourself, oh, this book, it changed my life. Did it really? And how much did you have vested in that book? How difficult was it for you to read? My next guest, he knows about the road to serfdom. First, you have to understand what he went through just to read the book. 1971, Soviet Union. If he was caught reading The Road to Serfdom, if anybody was caught reading Road to Serfdom, he could go to jail. You can find it in any library. You can go to the bookstore right now. You can go to Amazon, click, and get it. He would go to jail. The friend who gave him the book could get 12 years of hard labor for disseminating anti-socialist propaganda. He read the Road to Serfdom, and it changed his life. Years later, he, and I use this term, I know you're going to correct me on it, defected from the Soviet Union. His name is Yuri Maltsev. He is the professor of economics at Carthage College. Yes, somebody who grew up in the Soviet Union teaching economics. And he's better than all the clowns in Washington. He is also the editor of Requiem for Marx. How are you, sir?
Thank you. I'm very well.
I have been looking forward to speaking to you today because you were actually in college when you read it. And you were allowed to read this book, but it was like one of those books that was kept under lock and key, right?
Yes. Later, after I read the book, I've changed my major to economic history and history of economic thought. So then they gave me permission to read under closed doors, and I would write kind of a pledge that I will never tell anybody about the book, which I'm breaking right now.
Well, you might be arrested by our own DOJ any day soon on this. When you read it, what was it that connected with you?
Well, it was amazing for me. It was kind of like developing a film. I mean, a lot of things that I was thinking about, because if you were born in the Soviet Union, raised in the Soviet Union, then you can see a country which was really too big to fail, failed, and it was not providing enough food, enough clothes, enough housing, enough anything for those people. And we were trying to figure out why. And definitely we're looking for answers, and these answers were all there in this.
Did you ever discuss them in college? You could read it, but could you then discuss it and say, hey, we're doing all these things, maybe that's the problem?
Yes, then you would discuss it in Eastern Siberia and hard labor camp.
Right.
And I would discuss it only with people I trusted. Back in all socialist countries, usually people would have a group of people whom they trust. And then otherwise it would be impossible to survive. But you were all the time very much aware that you could be reported.
My wife brought me to the mall this weekend. And that's always a great experience. Standing there with the dresses by the hangers, and she's in the other room. You're just like, no, I don't need any help. Nothing fits me in this dress size. But so I was standing there, and people kept coming up to me. And what I found absolutely amazing is every person that came up to me in the mall that weekend, or this last weekend, was either from Cuba, or they were from a former Soviet Union country. And they were all coming up and saying the same thing. You got to keep going. Americans don't get it. They don't see it. Can you explain what that even means?
Absolutely, because that's the people who saw the devil in the eye. I traveled quite a lot with my students to Cuba, because if you go to Cuba, it's the best inoculation against socialism that you can ever have.
No, you didn't see the Michael Moore film. No, I've heard they have tremendous health care.
This is so disgusting. It's agitprop of Soviet type. I mean, the Sicko, you mean, movie?
Yeah.
Yes, there's only one health care kind of in Cuba. It's to swim to Miami right away. There's no other healthcare system. I've been to Cuba many times, and I can attest to that.
So what is it that you see that the regular American doesn't see?
Well, I think that people are taking liberty, freedom as granted, and that's why many of us, they think that it will be all the time here, and they don't see the symptoms of this awful disease which ruined the country I came from. Because the Soviet Union, can you imagine, was a country of 11 time zones, of almost everything. And the country became dirt poor, completely devastated by its own government, which murdered over 50 million people, of their own people, including my own grandfather.